Hi, welcome. In this video, again, I want to focus in on the use of certain tools by way of a interaction-based approach. And again, understanding that when you're aligned with a system of training that makes sense to the dog, it changes the context of certain tools with how they align, how they connect, with how they express influence by way, again, of relationship, by way of how a dog's decision-making process is governed. And here, again, I talk about certain tools. Again, I talk about tools by way of, how they're speaking the right language to the dog. Again, within understanding a dog's state of mind, with a dog that is expressing a level of control. And understand that, again, I talk about the confusion in the dog training world with a very popular idea that trains a learning-based exercise. I would encourage you to consider, again, like always, I mention this on just about every video, the parenting example. Okay, once you start to really consider and lining things up by way of behavioral issues, what they represent, everything else will start to make sense. Even when I talk about this whole issue of an open door by way of dogs continuing to hold a level of control with how it is that trainers are jumping right into a relationship problem and superficially motivating dogs to respond without considering the role of influence. Okay, again, this whole issue of what I call bribery. When does bribery become bribery? Well, bribery becomes bribery again when you're not considering the current state of the relationship or revealing truth by way of interacting with your dog in a specific way to understand that it's not just about getting a dog, motivating a dog to respond and then just giving that a green light, saying, well, if it looks good, it must be good. And then again, I talk about, when you're petting on your dog, you're assuming something. And those assumptions may be misplaced, okay? Again, based again on how you're really being perceived, but again, how you're engaging a relationship problem at the very beginning. So again, think about, encourage people to consider, okay, why you want to interact with your dog the way that I show, okay? It is a type of power play. Understand that when you're interacting, it is going to set that in motion, but it's a type of power play. Again, consider the parenting example. Once a child's already selfish and you're getting in their airspace, okay, differently, okay, you're starting to establish a demand or parental influence, well, you're going to get some kickback, okay? But understand the whole thing about a kickback, it's understanding about, again, the role, your parental role in that with advancing change versus, and really think about this, it'll start to make sense, if I start to adopt a different way forward by way of bribery, accommodation, negotiation, yeah, I can gain agreeableness, but doesn't mean the relationship's getting any better. Okay, I understand this is why certain moments that you see on, say, social media with dogs that are very agreeable, okay, and then you go in and really take a close look at the content that you're seeing, you're not going to see the full picture because, again, my statement is you can't showcase bribery, okay, without showing that there's problems that are still happening, okay? Understand that this whole kind of appearance-based narrative or this process that's superficial, well, there you have it, and then start to line things up as you start to connect dots the right way. Now, again, this goes into what I want to talk about a little bit more in this video. Again, when I talk about certain devices such as the choke chain, okay, understand that by way of this interaction-based approach and being dialed in properly, okay, with influences aligning properly, it's not about cranking and yanking on dogs. It's not about that, and that comes through most of the balanced dog training kind of optics, okay, by way of delay, okay, not being dialed in properly. And so therefore, picking, kind of cherry picking certain moments where you say, oh, now it's a problem, and now I'm gonna, offer up a correction, what's called. Well, here it's understanding being dialed in at such a level saying, hey, listen, I already know I have a relationship problem, okay, I need to be dialed in properly, and so therefore taking the form of a nudge, okay, knowing as the dog is expressing control, fixating, you'll see certain, even how I'm turning, you'll see how I'm turning to kind of really show a better picture as to the dog's state of mind, how the dog is expressing that. So therefore, you're going to be more effective, the dog's going to be more agreeable, influence is part of the equation the right way, okay? And so I think everything's going to start to make sense, better sense to the dog, dog's going to be more agreeable, going to make more sense to you, and so you're going to be more successful within certain moments, okay? That's very important. Now again, when I talk about tools like the choke chain, okay, this is where we talk about strangling dogs. This comes from the force-free side of things, and then you hear all this rhetoric inflammatory language, is understand they're following a path of what I described: bribery, accommodation, negotiation. So they're really totally sideways. Okay, it's appearances. Okay, they're following a different path, and so they're not even reconciling influence properly or reactions properly either. Okay, because then, and again, this bends towards, again, the bad optics of balance training. So just think about when you have, I talked about cranking and yanking in certain situations where dog's going into high challenge because, you know, it's, again, it represents this open door effect, influences lining up. And so you get to both sides of things. Understand, you get to both extremes, so to speak. Get the extreme of the optics of balance training, you know, and the confusion there. Then you get the other extreme of force-free training, okay, with the, you know, how influence is being misrepresented, the inflammatory language, so there's that bent that way. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about, okay? I'm talking about, and then from that, you have that disconnected counterfeit picture that happens for so many, okay? You're wondering, okay, what's going on here? I'm still dealing with all these behavioral issues that haven't gone away. It must be something wrong with the dog. Well, no, okay? It's this idea, okay, how it's being applied. Now here, again, so I talk about device, understand it's aligning with a, you know, interaction-based approach where you're dialed in the right way, and that changes everything. Okay, so therefore, when you talk about strangling dogs, understand people talk about that type of, you know, the dog's pushing against and the reactions and all these different things. Well, the goal is, okay, start to get a dog to change happening, dog starting to come into agreement with, okay, and then therefore starting, you'll see the slack start to happen, you see the dog start to relax, okay, because you're dialed in. And again, I talk about these moments, I talk about certain, I call them, you know, set points, okay, moments where, again, influence is active, but at a nudging level, ahead of the curve of the dog's mind in such a way, okay, where these tools can start to fade away. Okay, so understand that you're not waiting or delaying, and then you're, you know, reconciling reactions properly. So understand this, that, because I want to talk about this, even when you get high reactions with dogs, you know, dogs are holding a lot of control, you do have to be considerate and careful with, you know, bringing certain tools online too fast. Okay, so because what'll happen is if you just start using this pressure collar on the dog, and you're going from 0 to 100 basically in the dog's mind, saying this person's going from me, I'm in total control, and then they're trying to bring me under control and using this tool that way, it'll bring the dog into a high level of challenge very quickly, okay? It's not a good situation. So you want the dog to start to make sense, okay? Kind of, you know, keep things really leveled out. And this is where using just, again, talk about using just the flat collar, because again, understand, if you're going to a situation where a dog has total control, you're using body harnesses and retractable leashes, the dog's out in front of you, the dog's got a lot of control issues, a lot of stress on that dog now, and then you're going from basically a permissive parenting style to authoritative, okay, it's quite a change, quite a dramatic change. And think about the parenting example, it'd be like going into the child's bedroom, and you know, they're overly invested in video games, just ripping all the, you know, the plugs out of the wall and getting the high level of conflict. Okay, that's not good. Okay, so you have to kind of ease into it, so to speak, right? So this is where, again, just your flat, you know, straight collar, but again, through the right, you know, interaction-based approach. Okay, so it's not just about getting into a, you know, situation where the dog is pulling and on that collar, and this is where you get all that rhetoric and coming from the force-free side of things. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? And not even be able to reconcile the reactions properly anyway. Okay, so I'm talking about using a collar. Dog's going to be more agreeable to easing into it, and then start to, again, and when I talk about the choke chain, okay, especially for for bigger dogs. You get dogs, you know, you're out trying to walk your dog in the street, certain situations. This is where, again, you know, having both collars on the dog at the same time, but starting to switch back and forth. So if I need more control for a bigger dog, the goal is to bring the dog into the heel position. But again, always consider the themes I'm talking about being dialed in. You know, see how influence is happening. Totally different, right? So it's just about how you use the tool at the same time, but to give me the control I need, right? And also advocate so I can, you know, I can tap a little bit. I can, you know, use the tool effectively to start to get the dog to relax, right, to come beside me. So again, understand that when we talk about a choke chain, okay, it's about how that tool lines up, okay, through the right system, through the right methodology. Versus, right, think about what I'm saying. So I understand what's out there, what's popular in the dog training world, all the confusion, all the rhetoric, all the inflammatory language that's coming from, okay, both these groups. Okay, understand it doesn't line up anyway. So you're either going totally opposite direction one way, and then you're gonna have a bad picture, influence is needed, it's not in there, okay, and dog's still holding control. Or the other group, right, balanced, right, confusion, bad optics, right, open door anyway, dog's still holding control. Just, you know, so you want to, again, my encouragement is you want to adopt or align yourself with a methodology, a interaction-based approach that everything is going to make sense, okay? And so therefore use certain tools, they're going to line up. So, but again, I encourage you to watch my videos. I got lots of great content on my YouTube channel. I'm going to talk more about these devices, how to use them, you know, what to be aware of, you know, just keeping things safe, leveled out. I talked about the muzzle in a prior video, you know, keeping it safe. But again, it's just about, you know, being very intentional with how you're moving forward. Thanks for watching.